Ich komme von unserem Technologiezentrum in Kaiserslautern.
Of the Technology Center in Kaiserslautern, Technology and Strategy. This involves also the collaboration with startups and universities. I was in charge of this project, EIT Food, co-funded by the European Union. Some of the costs, or the large portion of it, was financed by the European Union. And we must mention that because the EU says we promote projects that should be publicized, and I will take the opportunity to report today about it. What is EIT Food? Then I will talk about the project idea and project targets, what were the challenges when implementing it, what were the elements of the DLC, and also the evaluation of the sustainability. What is EIT Food? EIT stands for European Institute of Innovation and Technology, with headquarters in Budapest. They are an EU authority, and they support KICs. They are knowledge and innovation communities. There's one called EIT Food, which covers the whole food chain. And we could apply in a tender. There's EIT Health, EIT Digital, EIT Materials, and we wanted to have such a KIC for food, and we were bidding for it. There were 70 partners, and EIT Food has its headquarters in Leuven, Belgium, and in Weihenstephan, near Munich. Here you see the founding partners with whom we have applied for, like Siemens, PepsiCo, lots of universities, Technical University of Munich, or Cambridge. Bosch is a partner, so big players. Within this project, EIT Food Consortium, you can apply for grants. For this DLC, how did we find out about it? For those of you that don't know, precision farming is precision agriculture. What is the purpose of it? Since 2000, we use GPS in farming and cultivation. We know where we are in the field. We can put a sensor in the machine, and we see so-called cards. And we know that the field, the yields fluctuate a lot. I have fields where I have twice the harvest and yield as on others. I look the field as a unit. I have the same planting and seeding, and does it make sense if the yields fluctuate so strongly? Actually not. And the technology provides the tools to respond to that. Target of the precision farming is to adjust to the heterogeneity in the field, which is caused by soil differences in the soil. For example, water absorption and water storage capacities, but also the microclimate in a ditch. You have more fog, and there are big differences that occur. If we adjust where a lot grows, we could harvest more if we fertilize more. But where there's less growing, we need to fertilize less. Otherwise, we have a lot of nitrates ending up in the groundwater. If I don't fertilize enough, the quality of the crop or the food is diminished because gluten is missing on the wheat. If I yield too much and if it's all the same, then I have spent a lot of money. I have paid for seeds and fertilizer, and burdened the environment with it unnecessarily, because at some time that nitrate is ending up in the groundwater. So it makes sense to do precision agriculture and not as commonly to cultivate the field in a general way. So the idea was precision farming makes a lot of sense. It promotes the sustainability of agriculture because I have the optimum yield with a minimum amount of operating materials and operating machinery. This know-how is not widely spread. No one knows what technology can do in farming, and lots of farmers don't use it. That's why it was our idea to use a computer game as a totally new idea to transport the idea of precision farming to a wider public, especially to the younger generation, and invest in the younger generation. And sons of farmers play that game, so we can increase the dissemination in agriculture and then also strengthen our image as technology leader at John Deere. We offer a lot of features, and it's not about develop more technologies, but implement them into practical use. With this idea, we convinced EIT Food to get sponsoring. And when you say, I want to do something, the question arises, with whom will I do it? If I want to spread it as wide as I can, I need to do it with a market leader, and that's Giant Software when it comes to farming simulators. We need more partners, especially universities in Reading. It's near London. In Baden-Württemberg, near Stuttgart, the University of Hohenheim. Then the partner Grupa AN in Spain, the Polish Academy of Science were on board to promote everything in Eastern Europe, and EIT Food financed it. What challenges did we have when implementing it? We had a game, and we needed to think about how we use the state of art and technology into the game. And we needed to think of who is playing it. Of course, heterogeneity of the audience is very large. It starts from small children to grown-ups, or farmers that have a farm, or people that work at John Deere, or all the way up to people that don't know much about agriculture. We have players all around the world. And we need to find a global approach that module can be used all over the world. We needed various crop types that can be supported and different yield levels. If a wheat producer harvests 12 tons in average, and in Kazakhstan only 2 tons, then it has its impacts on the fertilizer and so forth. Then we needed to think of what can the players do with this information? What do they know about agriculture? So that was quite a challenge. Other challenge was the degree of complexity. Of course, we wanted it to be as close to reality as possible, but nevertheless easy to comprehend and easy to play. And what's important with playing is the fun factor. If it's too complicated and no one understands it, then that won't work either. We made many compromises and said, what are we going to include in the DLC? And there's a nice little video on YouTube I will play for you as a starter to get an idea. Here you see the sponsor, EIT Food, that provides the funds. It starts with soil samples. I need to determine the soil type, what the precision is concerned. In the field, we need GPS. I can save seeds by varying the amount of seeds depending on the precision of the seeding. Here's a see and spray technology with cameras that recognizes weeds and only spray where there's weeds. Then there's the lime fertilization. Every soil type has a different pH value. Then we have sensors for the nitrogen application of fertilizers. Sometimes they even work at night with illuminations and lighting. Then there's manure nitrogen sensor, and we have a so-called environmental score that includes an economical analysis. That's all included. You see the partners here. And it was important to us that it's free. So it will have a large distribution. It was very successful. We had 2 versions for the farming simulator, 19, and we have more than 1.5 million downloads. And for the farming simulator 22, there's more than 500,000. What are the functions? Automatic steering with GNSS, or the GNSS is for global navigation satellite systems. That's not only GPS. We use the Russian system Globus, Galileo, Beidou in China. There are many satellite systems that we can all use, and with which we can steer the tractor with a precision of centimeters. We need to do a soil sample to see how they vary. We can have a variable fertilization with lime, fertilizing with organic fertilizers, and a variable yield of mineral or liquid nitrogen fertilizers. Many people use artificial fertilizers. We should avoid that. The fertilizer is not artificial. It's artificially made, but it's nitrate and ammonium as it is in manure. It's not artificial. It's a mineral fertilizer. Then it's the creation of the yield maps when harvesting with the various yields and with those cards or maps, and the economical evaluation, where all of the costs are. If I harvest more, I have more profit, and if I fertilize less, I have less costs, and I can change my output. When we developed the second version for the Farming Simulator 22, and the focus was sustainability. It's around everywhere. But what is it? On the one hand, I want to feed the world population sustainably. And if people starve to death, we need to harvest as much as we can, but not burden the environment so much. We need to have the impact. Every time I run my machinery over the field, I impact the nature. Otherwise, it would be jungle. What did we use? We used soil maps. It takes too much time. Can we use nutrient maps instead and buy them? We have integrated that. Then variable seeding. Here I can save money. Seeds are expensive. And if I have an optimal seeding bed on a good soil, I can significantly reduce this amount of seeds. If it's a clay soil that's difficult, where the contact to the seed is poor, then I need to seed more. We included that. Then the camera-based recognition of weeds. I will talk about that later. Then the targeted spraying of manure, fertilization. Then the plant sensor, manure fertilization. The plant withdraws nitrogen, and I need to fertilize with an amount. The soil has organic substance that produces nitrogen that's available to the plant. It's not the same every year. It depends on temperature. And with that plant sensor, I can detect what is the nutritional condition of the plant and adjust the fertilization. And then the environmental burden, the environmental score. That was one of the most difficult parts, where we had discussions for weeks on end until we came to a conclusion and could find an agreement how we evaluate what, and there were different opinions, of course. Some examples of sustainability. First of all, weed control with See and Spray. It's called See and Spray, the system, and on the spray bar there are cameras attached. Why have we developed that? If you go into a field, you don't see weeds all everywhere. You could call them wild flowers. We call them weeds. It's a plant that is in competition and takes away water and sun and reduces the yield. We don't want to have them. They're at the wrong time in the wrong place. We call them weeds. If you call it plant or wild plant, we need to remove them if we want to have maximum yield. We have cameras on the spray bar. They can see the weeds and detect them. We need to recognize them and recognize what kind of weed it is. And with artificial intelligence, with software, we have trained our machines with hundreds of millions of images, what kind of image it is and where it is located. Then the nozzle opens where there is a weed and sprays the optimum amount of herbicides at the very location, and we can save on 50 to 90% of herbicides, which is interesting financially for the farmer and also is good for the environment. Again, environmental score, a few sentences. From our point of view, it's optimum, and all professors and scientists went along and said it's the optimum approach, even if you use chemistry. So we award 30 points. I can also hoe or till where there's no crops. And I can also remove weeds by hoeing. Disadvantages, I need more energy because I pull something through the soil. I need to go over the field in addition. I pull up more seeds of weeds that will fertilize, and we all have to fight with droughts every time. If I pull up humid soil on the top, I need loose water. So hoeing does not award as many points. Then 100% spraying only amounts to 15 points. Here again, sustainability is important. We need to feed the world population. We cannot allow not to spray because the yields will diminish as much that we cannot nourish the world population, and the prices for cereals will even go through mushroom and go through the ceiling. So no control has the lowest points because yields diminish the most, and it's not sustainable. We cannot really nourish the people anymore. The more yield I produce, the more CO2 the plant will require to produce this product. We talk a lot about agriculture having a lot of future to transform CO2 from the atmosphere into the soil.
By way of conclusion, I would like to mention manure sensing. John Deere does not have any manure tankers, but we do have an infrared sensor to measure and gauge the protein content in cereals or the ingredients of maize and corn, and we can also gauge the nitrogen content of liquid manure. And liquid manure is a very decisive factor for nitrate pollution in the groundwater, because I cannot really tell how much liquid manure I have been spreading. And they keep stirring the liquid manure, but a lot of suspended components will actually subside to the bottom, which means that you've got some subsidence at the bottom of your tank. And now this gauge actually keeps measuring the current content, and I can adjust it in a way to make sure that I do not spread any more nitrogen than is needed. And only if I know that will I be able to adjust my mineral fertilizer. I don't like the term artificial fertilizer, but industry-made fertilizer is very expensive because we do have to extract nitrogen from the air using the Haber-Bosch process, converting it into nitrate and ammonium, which requires a lot of energy. And to provide that energy, we have to burn gas. So a lot of fertilizer manufacturers have reduced their production output due to high gas prices, and nitrogen fertilizers have just seen prices rise 3- or 4-fold. And this will enable our farmers to reduce the prices they have to pay, because they will not actually spread too much nitrogen fertilizer. So we will not provide the full environmental score unless players use the plant sensors to gauge the current nitrogen needs of the plants. So this project will run until the end of the year, and we are currently disseminating the DLC, and the universities involved also use the DLC for teaching when farmers are trained. you.